John at McCammon and Murray. We were Liberty Law. We're transitioning into McCammon and Murray, so we're kind of both right now. But we are going to be McCammon and Murray, and the difference between the two is nothing. It's the same people, it's just different names. And we're changing names because we opened an office in Texas, and for regulatory reasons we have to change our name. So who am I? I know some of you in the room, and I'm kind of stepping into Sean's shoes, and so you guys all know Sean. You don't necessarily know me. So I have a brief and boring history of John, which is
it's one slide.
Yes, one slide. So I moved up here in 2007 from Sacramento, and that's about all there is to know about me. In addition, though, I am right now the president of Kiwanis, and like a lot of other guys that live in Red Bluff, I like to hike and hunt and fish and do outdoor things. And that's about all there is to know about me.
You have a wonderful wife and two beautiful children.
Yeah, I love I have a great family, very supportive. And then all the other details about me come out around the campfire at camp. So what is McCammon and Murray? We are a law firm. It's a professional corporation, and we do estate planning, probate, trust administration, business law, litigation. So just about anything legal you can think of, we do, with the exception, big exceptions would be we don't do any criminal law and we don't do any family law or child custody. So other than those two big areas, we can pretty much either handle your legal needs or get you to somebody that can do like a specialist that can handle your legal needs if we can't do it for you. So, and then I'm kind of going through the who, what, where, and why of McCammon and Murray. So we are Sean, John, Stephen. Those are the three attorneys in our office. And then we have an assistant, Linda, who's awesome. And we always think about getting a second assistant, but Linda does the work for like 3 people and still manages to keep a smile on her face. So we just keep it simple with just Linda. She probably wishes she had more help. And then, why? Why do we exist? What are we doing over at Adobe Plaza or in Redding or in Texas? And I got into law because I wanted to help people. And yeah, maybe I kind of ran out of options on other professions, and so, but I still managed to go through 3 years of law school and take the bar, and it was all for a reason. It was because I really do like helping people. And when I first got out of law school, I went to work for a huge law firm, and I was a cog in a wheel. I sat in actually a very nice corner office looking out at the Capitol. But nonetheless, I sat in an office and never interacted with clients. I did research and writing and hardly ever left the office. And I thought, this is for the birds. And so when I moved up here, what I really looked forward to was interacting with actual people and actual clients, and getting to know them, getting to know their story, and seeing how I can help them. It's not always as rosy as it seems now, but I still like meeting and helping people. So, and then, as attorneys, we represent our clients' best interests. I mean, that's what we do. And what I like to tell people is it's client's interest first and client's interest second, and then my interest like somewhere down along like 5th or 6th. So I don't hesitate, and I know the other attorneys in the office don't hesitate to tell clients, hey, look, hiring an attorney is not your best option right now. Or spending money on me taking this route that you want to go is not your best option. Your best option is to keep your money and maybe consider this other route. And there are multiple times where I am counseling clients to do something that's not in my financial interest. So as a store owner or something like that, you may say, hey, this would be great for you, why don't you buy this? Maybe you find a need for it. For me, it's like, sometimes my financial interests and the client's interests are opposing forces, but we make sure that the client interest is put first, because I hate to hear the stories and see clients coming into my office where other attorneys have charged them an arm and a leg and they've gotten nowhere, and it was kind of antithetical to the client interest. So anyway, so that's who and why. And I moved, as I mentioned, to Red Bluff in 2007, and it was mostly just for a different change of pace, to get into a more rural area. We were living in Sacramento and liked it, but wanted to split and see grass and not hear traffic all the time. Which then draws the question, well, if you're in Red Bluff and you're an attorney, you must suck. Or, you know, like if you were a real attorney, you'd be in a real city. And that's not true. So there are a lot of attorneys in the North State that are very good, come from very good backgrounds from prior life, you know, prior professional life where they were, you know, top of their class and, you know, working for high-powered firms. And they've just made the decision to move here. So yeah, there are some crummy attorneys in small towns, but it's hard to hide too. So if you're bad, you're not going to survive. And so there is a bit of a stereotype, like, hey, if I need real legal work, I'm going to go to Sacramento, or I'm going to go to Redding, which we're in Redding, so that's fine if you want to go there too. But that's not necessarily the case. And you know, there are times where we get clients that I can't help them. It's just way above my pay grade. It's too specialized, and so we send them to attorneys in Sacramento and San Francisco, just because there's a bigger pool of specialists there. So then moving on the most exciting PowerPoint presentation you've ever seen. And the purpose of this, I thought, was you don't really know me, so I'll give you just a little bit of background on it, because I could sit up here and talk about any one of my practice areas ad nauseum and put you all to sleep, kind of like I do the judge when I'm in court. So, in fact, I have the distinct privilege of one of the judges here in McCammon County, outside of court, but he announced to everybody that I am the most boring person who's ever been. So if you have a really, really bad case and you want everybody to fall asleep so they forget that you have a bad case, I'm your guy.
So is that natural or acquired?
I think it's natural. My wife tells me it's natural. So before I moved up here, you know, I mentioned I was working at a big firm, and you know, the kinds of matters I was working on were interesting but wonky. But you know, representative clients were Procter & Gamble, American Honda, which was the American division of Honda Motor Company, Ralph Holdings, Fortune 500 company, and then did a lot of work on cases for the state insurance commissioner, dealing with insolvent insurance companies, because insurance companies can't declare bankruptcy under the bankruptcy code. It's more state regulated, and so they become insolvent, and the insurance commissioner will potentially take them over. So we did work on behalf of the insurance commissioner on some of those matters as well. And so those were interesting, but not super exciting, because again, I wasn't dealing with clients. I was dealing with other attorneys and in-house counsel. And also learning how my favorite foods were killing me in the Procter & Gamble case. And that dealt with acrylamide, which was in the news again over coffee. But again, it's in a chemical, it's called acrylamide. It has an industrial application, but it's also formed naturally when you cook certain foods, which happen to be the really good foods: potato chips, French fries, coffee, bread, things like that. So
this Corona, John.
Killing me, I'm still drinking.
I know. So anyway, the claims of that were that this is a chemical known to the state of California to cause cancer, and so you have to put warning labels on these food products, like you would see on jewelry that you get from China or something like that. Well, actually, they don't put labels on anything, but jewelry that you might get from other places. So if you want to know more about that, I can put you to sleep. So, yeah. So from that now, you know, what we're doing is kind of my routine, or my bread and butter at work now is estate planning. And you've heard me talk about that. That would be trusts and wills, but also kind of other documents that go with estate planning, like advanced healthcare directives, so somebody can make medical decisions for you if you're incapacitated. Durable power of attorney, so somebody can make financial decisions for you if you're incapacitated. And then, some of the other helpful documents that if a huge life-changing event happens, people can step in and manage your affairs for you, either on a temporary or a long-term basis. And, one of the things that doesn't get brought up a lot in estate planning, I'll just pause here for a second, is if you have minor kids, what's going to happen to your kids if you become incapacitated or die? And so that is, if you are in the, under 50 area and you have minor kids, that's probably the most important reason to come see an attorney for estate planning. So you can set up guardianship for your children. The money will take care of itself. Who's caring for your kids, I think, is probably the most important thing to think about. And so we can help a client kind of guide them through considerations and options for selecting a guardian. So estate planning, and then other matters, I do litigation, so I handle construction disputes, property damage for businesses. I've got a case right now out of Weaverville where the property burned down because the roofer was using a torch on the roof and it just torched the whole place. And so insurance paid out, but didn't pay out enough to cover all the business loss, and the business died as a result of this fire. So now we're going back and we're suing everybody. But that's and then like on construction disputes, I've got a client right now. It's a commercial food facility, and the construction wasn't done right, and it's really affecting the client's business. And so we're trying to get that remedy. And I represent contractors and business owners, kind of play both sides of it, if you will, in these cases. So. And then I do some more transactional work, like drafting leases, some property sales or auctions and things like that. Usually kind of one-offs from real estate agents. So for instance, I'm working, I think I'm done with it, but it was a purchase option on some vacant or unoccupied or undeveloped property, but it had some kind of lots of conditions in it. And so they came to me to handle it. So, and then we do homeowners association stuff, and then again probate, trust administration, which is dealing with the trust and how the trust gets administered once somebody dies, and then litigation over all that too, kind of picking at the remains. And unfortunately it happens, and we're involved in that process. It's about the closest thing to family law as I can think of, and it's not all that exciting a lot of the times because people are fighting because they don't like each other instead of because they have a legitimate gripe. So, and then we do some bankruptcy, mostly just personal bankruptcy. And that's a smaller portion of my practice, but it is something that we do. And I could talk about bankruptcy at length as well, because it's a pretty interesting process. So again, if you'd like to fall asleep at some point in time, just let me know, I'll help you. One of the things that I'd like to convey is kind of what an ideal client is for our business. But it's hard to do that because we do so much, and we are kind of a general practice. But as long as it's not a criminal or somebody fighting over kids, then that's a good start. That would be, if it's not that group, then everybody else would be a good client. But, really, if you have friends or family members that are thinking about getting a trust or a will, or they have one and they're not sure if that is up to date or if it meets their needs, be happy to sit down with them, review it with them, and kind of discuss what their options are. Again, sometimes the option is, hey, this thing looks fine. You don't need to pay me to do anything, and I'll send them on their way. So that would be an ideal client. And then other ideal clients would be business owners that are maybe looking to sell a business or acquire a business, and then any of the probate work as well. So, and then think that's it. I had some closing pictures and things like that, but they weren't going to come through on paper. So if you want to ask me questions, I'd be happy to do that. And if you don't, yeah.
So as far as you're talking about selling a business, acquiring a business, do you do value assessments for businesses?
Okay, so I don't, and that's where somebody like Colleen would come in to be able to value what the business is. I can help describe or help guide different types of valuation, but not actually valuing the business. Yeah. So where I would come in would be either documenting what you have already agreed to, or giving you thoughts about, have you thought about structuring the transaction this way versus some other way? Yeah.
In terms of the trusts and things like that that you do, it sounds to me like they're basically designed to kind of be on autopilot. In other words, for example, if one becomes incapacitated mentally down the road, then all the spouse has to do is get a note from the doctor essentially, and that will trigger it. Is that correct? And then does that mean that we need to come back and talk to you and make that change, or is it an automatic thing?
Okay, so as on almost everything in the law, it depends.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so you pay me all this money, and then I give you, well, it depends. I can't give you a straight answer. So they would typically be designed that if a spouse becomes incapacitated, the non-incapacitated spouse could have a doctor's note or 2 doctor's notes, and that would be enough to trigger a power of attorney or a healthcare directive.
Right.
And then they also have provisions where, for instance, if you know you're going to be out of the country or something like that, and you want to give your spouse complete authority, you can sign a document that would trigger the power of attorney then. So,
I see.
but the idea of all of this is that it would be on autopilot. So if a death or incapacity happens, then just a couple of easy steps are needed to get all these documents effective. And then, sometimes you have problems with third parties honoring a power of attorney or honoring a healthcare directive, and then we can help nudge them in the right direction.
I see.
Yeah. But one of the purposes of having like for instance, a financial power of attorney is to avoid guardianship or conservatorships in court, which is a cumbersome, expensive process.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yes.
First question, have you ever referred anyone to Jerry Springer? Two, in all seriousness, if somebody was actually looking to get some advice on something, we call your office and speak to Linda about setting up some sort of a consultation or meeting to see if you would take us on as a client or take our case on. Is that normally how this type of thing works?
Yes. So in answer to the first one, no, I have not. But I have referred to attorneys that are kind of like Jerry Springer. And we get a lot of calls that are like, they probably should be on the Jerry Springer show.
I don't even know if it's still
Yeah, I don't either. But I mean, it's amazing how many crazy people are out there for such a small town. So, and we see it all on the phone calls. And it's like, I don't think I want to be handling that. So, to your second point, if you did want to, see if we could help you or what it would look like, then yeah, call our office, speak with Linda. She'll just get basic information. If it's a purchase and sale or potential litigation, then we need to know who the other parties are that are involved. And that way we know if we have a conflict or not. Yeah, and being a small town, we do have conflicts from time to time, and our ethical rules say we can't represent 2 parties on opposite sides of a lawsuit. And oftentimes we can't represent 2 parties on the same side of a lawsuit unless they sign something saying that it's okay to do that. Yeah. So there are lots of rules and lots of impediments to actually getting work done.
Yeah.
So, which is I think why attorneys charge so much. Anyway. So any other questions?
You just said there are more crazy people in small towns than big towns.
Yeah.
Well, right.
Per
Right.
capita. Per capita.
I was very shielded when I worked at Sacramento. Like phone calls didn't come to me. they'd have to go through several layers before they'd actually let me talk to anybody. Yeah, but now people just call the office and they're like, some guy's like looking at my cat weird. My fish on fire and I want to sue him. It's like, sorry.
That is so awesome. That is so very bad.
Okay, well, thanks for staying awake. And we'll try to prove that judge wrong that I'm not that boring.